My name is Jane Chan. I head up the Start Me Up Hong Kong team at Invest Hong Kong. Now, Invest Hong Kong is actually a government department of Hong Kong, helping overseas companies to establish in the city. I specifically look after the startup sector, so if anyone has any kind of questions to ask about Hong Kong and opportunities through Hong Kong to mainland China or to Greater Asia, please, just raise your hand. It's an informal session. Please feel free to ask these questions. I've also got my colleagues here as well. I've got two colleagues here. We've got Paula and Roxana for anyone who wants to catch up with them as well. And we've also got a booth at 163 if you want to come and visit us later. Can I move on to the PowerPoint? So what I'll do is I'll give you a little bit of a lay of the land about what the startup ecosystem is like in Hong Kong, and maybe then, just to give you an understanding, because I know a lot of people may not be hugely familiar or know what's happening in Hong Kong. And I just want to walk you through some of that and talk specifically more about the kind of like funding available, for example, and things like that. Okay, so very short presentation. Thanks for bearing with me. So in terms of the startup ecosystem, sorry, I just prefer to walk around. I hope people don't mind. We've been tracking the development of the startup ecosystem for about 8 years now. That's how long the startup ecosystem has really being established in Hong Kong. And you can see actually in terms of the number of startups we've had, you'll see that in the top left hand side here. We've had increases in a number of startups over the years, and even throughout the whole kind of COVID period, the past 2 or 3 years, we've seen growth. And that just basically the reason why you've seen this kind of growth is the fact that the startups see business opportunities in Hong Kong even through a very, very tough kind of pandemic time. The other thing I want to tell you more about Hong Kong, which you may not know, is that you may have heard of Hong Kong as being one of the world's financial centres. It also means that we have a very, very international and diverse workforce and talent in Hong Kong. And it also means about a quarter of the founders of the startups in Hong Kong come from outside of Hong Kong. So a quarter of our founders are international. If you guys were thinking about potentially scaling up in Asia, Hong Kong is a very good place to do so, because you've got the international kind of mindset, the talent and experience of people being in Europe and in Spain and the US, the UK, all these different locations coming to Hong Kong. And then you've got the talent in Hong Kong who are incredibly used to dealing with trade across borders and have the multilingual capabilities. When you put that together, it makes for very, very strong, resilient startups. So you feel very familiar with the environment if you were to come to Hong Kong to establish a base. What kind of industries are these startups residing in? Hong Kong being one of the world's financial centres, we do have predominantly fintechs that are coming, and the fintechs in Hong Kong tend to be more on the B2B kind of side, actually, because Hong Kong, we have a lot of the world's financial institutions in Hong Kong, and because we are effectively Asia's financial centre, we've got China on our doorstep. It basically means that we've got those big kind of players. If you want to target the big financial institutions, Hong Kong is a very good location to do so. In addition to fintech, though, we've also got quite a lot of e-commerce, supply chain and logistics tech kind companies being established in Hong Kong. And the reason for that is the fact that China is the world's biggest e-commerce market, as you probably know. And if you're looking to potentially tap into that e-commerce market within China, lots of companies establish their base in Hong Kong. And we also get the reciprocal side as well. We've got all these e-commerce companies in China who are looking to go international. They want to sell their products through China, whether we're talking Taobao, whether we're talking about Alibaba, all these kind of operations have a very, very sizable kind of setup in Hong Kong, because it allows them to do that real cross-border stuff that is slightly harder to do if you're basically purely based on the mainland. So that's why a lot of the companies establish here. But we've also got a lot of the traditional ICT kind of companies, the SaaS, the enterprise tech, especially if you're selling to, again, the banks or the corporates as well. So, so Hong Kong, even with a very small population, we are a population of 7.4 million people, and we are slap bang in the middle of Asia. We've only been around as an startup ecosystem for the past 8 or 9 years or so. Even then, we've had a high success rate with unicorns. So at this moment in time, this year, we've had, we currently have 7 different unicorns residing across a bunch of different industries. We've got fintechs, so all the top ones are fintech companies. They vary from the lending side to actually crypto exchange. Now, if you are in the whole crypto Web3 metaverse side of things, we are seeing a lot of action happening there. And some of the biggest crypto exchanges were started in Hong Kong, like Binance, for example, and a bunch of other kind of companies as well. So we've got 3 fintech unicorns at the moment. We've also got a travel tech company, we've got like a logistics tech, robotics company, as well as Animoca Brands. Again, this is a company you may hear more about in the future. They are a massive investor in the whole Web3, blockchain, gaming space, and we expect, well, they're already are worth, I think they're valued probably now at about 12 billion US. So, really strong companies. And for a small city like Hong Kong to have that level of unicorns shows you if you are the right type of company at the right stage and the right industry, Hong Kong can make a big difference. We recently had 2 companies go public as well, and those are the 2 companies here. One of them, GoGoX, basically listed on the main board of the Hong Kong Stock Exchange. It raised slightly slower than they expected because it's a pretty tough market at the moment. They raised 86 million earlier on in 2022. Prenetics they did a SPAC deal in New York Stock Exchange, and that was and they're now valued at 1.7 billion US. This is like a genetics testing as well as a drug discovery type of company. So, the range of types of companies that are doing well in Hong Kong really does vary. So why are we getting this kind of like interest, and why are we seeing, these startups slowly migrating through the early stages right through to those big exits? There's a few reasons, and obviously, we're competing in a lot of different levels with different kind of cities, but in Hong Kong specifically, we have a different kind of components that really does help to nurture those kind of startups. So we've got a very strong talent pipeline. Hong Kong talent, they tend to be very well educated. We are the only city in the world with 5 universities in the top 100 QS rankings. So we've got talent coming out of the universities that are incredibly bright, but also incredibly used to working cross-border as well. The government is also supplementing that with a range of talent attraction programs and visa schemes. So for example, at this moment we've got like a top talent visa scheme where if you are graduated from the world's top 100 universities, you can actually come to Hong Kong with no work and get a visa for 2 years. So there's a bunch of these kind of talent programs that are happening as well, and our colleagues can definitely give you more information on that. But we've also got, one of the reasons why people come to Hong Kong is also because of the funding opportunities. So we are, very good at the funding kind of level, right from the early kind of stages through to your exits, whether we're talking private markets, M&A, or the public markets as well. But when we're talking about overseas companies, they tend to be more in terms of the stage, the Series A, Series B kind of stage, where they start coming to Hong Kong, because that's where a lot of our investors are basically focused on. I mean, if you're earlier stage than that and you need to validate your product and see whether it's actually suitable for the Hong Kong market, there's a number of accelerators you can potentially join, that'll provide you with funding, but more importantly, the networks and the know-how as well to support you. We've also got the excellent market accessibility. So Hong Kong as a market in itself, we have 340,000 SMEs as well as 5,500 corporates, very concentrated in a very small piece of land. It means that if you target any of these kind of groups of companies, you can try the products out first to see whether your product is suitable for Asia. So Hong Kong, very sophisticated audience. You can try that out, and then if it works out, you can then start looking to basically tweak your products and make it relevant for the Asian market, and then hit what we call the Greater Bay Area. Now, this is a part of like southern China of 9 cities, as well as Hong Kong and Macau, that comprises a market of 86 million people. And this is just across the border. So once you've hit Hong Kong and modified your product, that's probably the next area you'll start hitting. And then from there, of course, you then go into the rest of mainland China or other parts of Asia. We are slap bang in the middle of Asia. We've got within 3 hours flight, you can access maybe something like I think a third of the world's population. By 5 hours, you can access up to half of the world's population. So we are very, very centrally located. And it's actually, there's nothing like the face-to-face side sometimes. You do need to travel in Asia. It is a market of very disparate and different types of markets. So it is important to be in a place where, you have that kind of access. The other side is that, the government is doing an awful lot, and the Hong Kong government, to basically support startups and tech companies across the board. The innovation and technology focus is a huge thing for us. And actually, over the past, I think even if you look at the past 5 years, over 100 billion US has been invested into this kind of space. And there's going to be more allocated because Hong Kong has been designated by the central authorities to be the international innovation and technology hub for the rest of mainland China as well. So there's going to be a lot of kind of policies that's going to be used to actually support that. And also we've got over 120 accelerators, incubators, university networks, associations to basically really knit all of that together and connect you. So I don't have a huge amount of time, but I just want to focus on some of the funding schemes we've got available. That is, from R&D side right through to hiring, business development, expansion. The government provides a lot of funding for that. I mentioned like the Top Talent Pass scheme. This is one of the new visa schemes that allows you to come to Hong Kong, even if you graduate from the relevant kind of universities, or you earned a certain salary in the past, you can come to Hong Kong and get a 2 years visa without a job, and then see whether it's something that you think is relevant for you. If you look at the funding for the 22-23 for the past year or so, we've had 3.8 billion US being invested in our startups, and that's even with the funding crunch that's happening as well. So, we do have a lot of investors that are really looking at different types of companies. They invest around the world as well, but this is the Hong Kong number, invest in Hong Kong startups. And you'll see the kind of investors, the most active venture investors we've got in Hong Kong, Animoca, Horizons Ventures, some of these companies. Horizons Ventures is a massive fund. They invest mostly overseas. They've invested in quite a lot of Israeli companies, US companies. So, lots of different kind of investors. Oops. And I think that's it. So if you're interested to potentially explore the Hong Kong market, we do have the Start Me Up Hong Kong festival that runs from the 8th to the 17th of November. It's a great area to potentially just come and get a concentrated dose of, meeting different types of people. There's like business matching opportunities. There's like, sector-specific events as well. And we'd be happy to potentially connect you to the various kind of people and the things that are going on. So anyway, that's the Hong Kong kind of market. Yeah, if anyone has any interest or any kind of question about what's happening there, I'd be very happy to take any questions. No?
Maybe Jane, you could, there has been some political instability in the past in Hong Kong. How do you think that may impact people's decisions to invest in the region?
I think we have had, issues, and I think certainly within the media, there's been a lot of like discussions and things about that. But I think fundamentally, there's the politics side of things, but the business side of things, for as long as there's actually genuine business opportunities, I think companies are still looking into Hong Kong. And we've had, ever since the quarantine restrictions opened up, at the beginning of this year, we've had a lot of people contacting us, and I think they've been waiting to potentially come, and we've been incredibly busy. So I think it's, the politics is one side, and instability. we're seeing still a huge amount of interest in Hong Kong, and I think, as I mentioned, for as long as you've got the real kind of business value you can provide to companies, I think there will be people who are still interested in coming.
Anyone else for some questions?
Thanks very much for sharing.
Sorry, I don't have my mic. I don't have my thing on. Actually, let me just get some. Oh, thank you. Actually, let me just go and get one. Sorry. Thanks. Apologies.
Thanks very much for sharing. So I would like to know more about the government grant. If startups from UK or Europe, when they set up their branch or even their headquarters in Hong Kong, is there some like specific government grant for those companies, or in which sectors?
So there's a whole bunch of different kind of government funding available for early stage if you're looking to potentially do R&D work. So there is there are different types of funding for different stages and for different kind of functions. But if you are just purely looking to Hong Kong, as a place to set up a company, then you would have to do things like the R&D or potentially expansion and get the funding through that way. Or you can potentially join one of the accelerators. That the government funds 2 public science parks that run a lot of incubation and accelerator kind of companies. So the funding will probably come from those kind of side as well. And it's only if you are, like a growth stage kind of company and you're looking to scale it a bit more, and then a lot of the private kind of funding, the private accelerators as well as investors, then step into that kind of stage.
Anyone else for some questions? Okay.
Thank you very much for your conversation. From your point of view, which would be like the first step we need to give to get to Hong Kong?
I think you need to basically see whether your product and service is relevant for the market there. And the only way you can potentially do that is actually to do a bunch of research in the first place to see. So for example, if you are a biotech kind of company and you're thinking about whether your product is specific. I mean, a lot of the regulations and things plays into the picture. So you would have to do the research and also, take opportunities to attend events and just get to know a bunch of people to see whether you've got the potential there. If you do have the potential market access, then, our company, Invest Hong Kong, government department, we've got offices around the world, as well as obviously in Hong Kong, that can actually step in and really take you by the hand and guide you through the process of potentially setting up in Hong Kong, how you hire people. We'll also connect you to relevant people as well. Whether we introduce you to potential clients depend on your business and whether we've got those kind of contacts. But if there is, we'd be happy to do that. And we've got sector-specific teams that have like industry knowledge that can really, basically makes you land a lot easier into Hong Kong. But the first stages is definitely just to check out whether there is potentially a market for your products in Hong Kong and Asia.
Would you say, I saw Brink over there in the list.
Yes.
Would you say like an accelerator program like the Brink one would be a nice way to arrive to Hong Kong?
Brink is fantastic. What kind of company are you, what kind of sector are you in?
Digital identity sector.
Okay. So Brink, for example, and the other kind of more public accelerators are fantastic because, for example, Brink, they run something like I think 20 different accelerator programs, and they invest in a minimum of 50,000 right up to 150,000 to 200,000 depending on the industry. And they, in addition to providing a lot of the obviously the financial help is useful, but what they really add value in is just a network, and they've just got excellent mentors. So I think if you can get into a program like Brink, it's really, really good. You're pretty much set up actually.
We are in that.
Oh, you are? So, oh, wow, okay. So you're obviously a very good company because, the hit rate is actually, quite small. But congratulations.
Thank you.
It's great. So you know how good they are.
We're trying to get there.
Oh, you're trying to get there. Okay, gotcha. Okay. Well, if we can sort of like help you along a little bit, we know the guys at Brink well. Let us know, send us your deck, and we'll see if we can put in a good word for you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else? Just under 2 minutes. Maybe just to end, you could give us a little idea. We've talked about the commercial, financial landscape. Just what about the sort of quality of life vis-a-vis the cost of living? What's it like to live in Hong Kong?
Okay, so you know, one of the reasons I would find it very hard to leave Hong Kong actually is the food. It's the food is absolutely phenomenal in Hong Kong, and it's basically, I think we've got more restaurants and per capita than any other location in the world. So whatever, you know, kind of food you're interested in, Hong Kong has it. But just, you know, jokes aside about that kind of thing, Hong Kong, you know, you do have a very good quality of life. You've got to balance that with, you know, relatively expensive rental kind of property. You know, I'm not going to say like everything is fantastic, because there's definitely challenges. So in terms of like house rental and things, it does tend to be slightly higher than maybe a lot of other kind of cities. But I think if you're open to some of the, you know, the islands and just being slightly away from the centre of town, you've actually got more range than people think. So we're not just one of those really, you know, just expensive and that's it. It's not the case. Even though we get the headlines, there's more choice. 40% of Hong Kong is a national park. I don't know whether people know that. You basically, within half an hour, you can be, you know, slap bang in a mostly dense, you know, incredibly dense CBD kind of district with, you know, your massive kind of financial institutions surrounding you, and then within half an hour you can just get to the beaches where it's completely quiet, deserted. Culturally, it's brilliant as well. We you know, this cliche about East meets West is a cliche, but in Hong Kong that really is the case. You know, people speak a lot of English. There's also, you know, the Chinese that's being spoken, but in addition to that, because it's so international, you know, there's like different kind of languages being spoken all the time. So I think it's the quality of living. I just think it's pretty nice.
Sounds pretty good to me. Thanks so much, Jane.
No, thank you so much for having me. Thanks everyone, and thanks for making time, you know. Thank you.